Hello, Peekers. Welcome back to Plot Peek. I'm Miranda.
And I'm Mackenzie, and this is your one-stop shop for storytelling,
Tea spilling,
and to keep up on all the latest book talk drama you have been missing out on. Beaches!
I was a little aggressive.
I mean, friends.
Right. Friend.
But all my best friends are bitches, so, you know.
Slay. And all my best friends are cunts.
Oh!
I'm just kidding.
Moi? All two of our best friends.
In the best of ways, you know. Obviously.
All two of our best friends.
Yeah. I'm just kidding. Maybe bleep that part out. I was just wanting
No,
to
I
see
love
your
it
reaction.
personally.
Okay. Slay then. You're a cunt.
For life updates, since, you know, we normally go into that, two things. I have fluid behind my ear. I just found out at urgent care today. So in light of ear problems in the U.S., get it? Ear issues, get it?
Oh, I get it.
Just kidding. I've decided to wear ears in honor of our former almost fallen president. Yeah. Here's some ears for you since yours is messed up and you're wearing a maxi pad at the conference yesterday.
Yeah. Another one bites the dust.
Not quite.
Anyways, my life updates, I don't think I really have much. I know that this week, we're batching right now, but this week I am going to the beach in North Carolina to visit my husband's family. We're going to have a little cute little beach vacay with them and the grandparents. It's going to be so cute. I'm really excited for that.
What if I just showed up there?
That'd be so nice.
I'd be like, you're in North. I had no idea.
You're at this exact location?
This condo too? Me too.
I'm staying here as well.
I had no idea.
They'd be like, okay, come on in.
Side note, should I just show up for an hour and we get lunch and do pictures?
Yeah.
And then I'll be like, okay, guys, have fun.
We love a location shoot. We love it.
Yeah, you guys can be like, we're going to go explore for just like an hour or two. We could take some pictures and then I'll leave. You'll just like, I'll never know that I was there. Yeah.
They'll never know.
They wouldn't know. Probably would they even care? No.
Probably wouldn't. They'd probably actually want to join and watch the photo shoot. They really love all the pictures that I post. And they're like, we love you take so many pictures. And I'm like, is that a good or bad thing? Someone told me once that was a bad thing, but.
To each their own. To each their own. I love that you take so many pictures. I feel like I'm with you all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, anything else? Do you have anything else to say about your little ears?
Nope.
Big ears, I should say.
Put some jewels on them.
All right. Well, we want to do a quick little reminder before we start that this episode will be covering Sarah J. Maas's Heir of Fire, chapters 40 through 49. So if you're reading along and you have not gotten to this part, this is your warning. We will be storytelling everything that happens up to and through these chapters. But before we start, let's do a quick recap of everything that's happened so far. Rowan and Celaena are getting closer. I'm keeping my eyes out for a possible love triangle with him and Aiden. And Rowan has opened up to Celaena about how he lost his mate and why he swore a blood oath to Maeve, even though she's a bitch.
Cunt.
And then yeah, but not in the good way. Manon and Abraxos got new spider silk for his wings, and we finally saw her beat up Iskra. Slay. And Abraxos has been confirmed he can fly, actually, so that's great, but he still needs to take his final cliff diving test. And Petra, the blue blood heir, can tell that wyverns aren't as simple-minded as the king's men think they are. And Chaol thinks that the clock towers in the castle garden could actually be one of the magic points associated with the vanishing of magic. But he's keeping that to himself for some reason. Did I miss anything?
No, I think you covered it. I think you really covered it. You did so good.
Thank you so much. We are going to start with Dorian since we didn't really talk about him last week. Dorian and Sorscha have been sneaky links for a few weeks, and Dorian is actually growing really deep feelings for her, and we can see he is genuinely wanting to provide for her. He's getting more and more tired of always having to hide everything about him, his thoughts, his magic, the woman he loves. And I don't know if I've given a clear timeline, but I'd say they've been talking for about 2 weeks since he started seeing her regularly, and he's already in love. That made me raise my eyebrows. I'm going to be honest about that, but I'll give him a pass because we know from Sorscha's POV that she's also loved Dorian since she first saw him. And while they're on cloud nine with their relationship, Dorian and Chaol's relationship is still pretty strained. Dorian can see that Chaol is still super uncomfy with the knowledge of his powers and who Celaena really is. And after a brief conversation about her, Dorian confronts Chaol with the truth. He says, "You can't pick and choose what parts of her to love. She's only on this path she's on now because of you. So you really need to figure out what you're going to do when she returns. Are you going to be her enemy or are you going to be her friend? Because I know what my choice will be." Which is tea, because obviously I think Dorian's going to be siding with Celaena. But when he does that, what does that mean for his relationship with his dad? I feel like everything is starting to come to a head right now.
Everything is coming to a head now. And this is when I fell in love with Dorian. It means so much to me when I was reading it to hear him say, you can't pick which parts of her to love. Like, he knows everything about her just as much as, Chaol does. And he still is choosing her based on the interactions that they've had. And he has a lot more to lose in choosing her. He has a lot more to lose than Chaol does. Dorian could lose his life, his throne, his title, which Chaol could too. But Dorian is in such a vulnerable position with his powers, and he's still siding with his friends. And Chaol supposedly loves Celaena / Aelin, and he's still being really sus and fishy about everything that's going on with her. And
yeah,
I don't know. I think this is when I fell in love with Dorian. I was like, he is a real one. Like, he is loyal to a fault.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's what I was going to say. I was like, it's so good that it's bad that Chaol is as loyal as he is, because honestly, if I were a king or queen and Chaol was my captain of the guard, I would be so happy that he's on my side, because I know that I could trust him and he would do everything in his power to make sure that I am safe and okay. But now it's getting to the point where he's like, he can clearly see that the king is the bad guy. He can clearly see that Dorian is going to be the one who suffers if anything goes wrong. And he can see that Celaena is somebody who could potentially save everything. And so it's like, why can't you just understand that you're on the wrong team right now and try to get away from it? So he's loyal to a fault, and I think that's tea.
He's loyal to a fault as far as his alliances, but Dorian is loyal to a fault for his friendships. And I think that is where I was like, Dorian is my man's chef's
Love
kiss.
that. Yeah.
To the Havillard. Chef's kiss.
So after a long trip away to Skulls Bay, Chaol and Aiden meet up with Murtaugh. And after his investigation on what the king could be up to out there, he's learned that the General Narak, who had commandeered the pirates' territory, had recently left to launch a surprise attack on Wendelin after hearing that the king had sent his champion there to kill the royal family. This is obviously bad news, because both Aiden and Chaol know that the champion is Aelin, and now she's in danger. And Murtaugh's like, listen, I've already asked Ralph if he'd be willing to help, but he said that was a hard pass, because remember, Ralph is the king of the pirates, and we first met him back in the Assassin's Blade, so he doesn't want to risk losing his territory all over again. So now Aiden and Chaol are having to brainstorm other ways to warn Celaena before Chaol has to join his father back in Nile. And another thing Murtaugh learned was when Captain Rolfe reclaimed his territory after the General Narak left, he said a few of his men noticed the scary sounds while General Narak was occupying the area had gotten quieter when he left. Ralph also said that the night that he returned, he saw a pale, mannish figure with a black collar standing on some rocks, watching them sail by. And he looked like he was going to come after them, but was yanked back by some invisible leash. So that's spooky.
That is really scary. I feel like that goes to show, though, well, maybe not goes to show, but definitely tells that the black collars maybe are either more powerful or have more influence over someone. You know what I mean? I don't know 100%, but it seems like the people with the rings are definitely, they're like slow growers as far as like their influence and stuff. And we know Adian's ring was fake. So, that's why he wasn't under any kind of influence. But even Cain with the black ring, it took him a while. Like, he was obviously kind of evil and corrupt to start with. So, but as far as like him growing in his powers and stuff like that, whereas I feel like the people with the black collars seem to be so scary invested as like as far and under so much control.
Yeah, the fact that he said something about this invisible leash really shows how controlled that person is, because it's like there's nobody around them. They're just standing there, but it's like a very obvious collar around their neck. So being pulled back by an invisible leash, it definitely gives very controlling vibes. Over at Farron's Gap, Manon has finally gotten Abraxos to fly with the other 13s. And one of the other wyverns did try to challenge him, but was quickly put in his place. So now the other wyverns respect Abraxos as their leader. But even that's not good enough for Manon's grandma. She slaps Manon around and tells her she's still an embarrassment for flying the bait wyvern, and she forces her to ride with Abraxos and takes his test now. So Manon and Abraxos are about to take this leap when they hear her grandma taunting and teasing her in front of all the witches. Abraxos is giving Grandma the death glare, like he understands every mean thing she's saying, and Manon has to look at him and she's just like, let's just do this and get it over with. But she's low-key worried because his spider silk wings haven't fully healed and they might not withstand the fast winds of the plunge. But without hesitation this time, Abraxos jumps to her command, dives down the gap so fast that even her eye shield weren't able to hold back the tears coming from her eyes. Faster than any of the other wyverns because of his small, compact size, she was worried that his wings would snap at the speed. But when the time came, his wings stayed strong and sturdy and sent them soaring up above the stars. And in my head, this was the perfect way to silently say, eat a bag of dicks, Grandma. And also, why do I feel like Manon is going to kill her? Like, she is not nice, and Manon's not nice either, but her grandma is actually a witch. She's evil.
Yeah, she's so freaking mean and scary. I feel like she is who I envision as far as like the cold, unflinching, like scary iron tooth witch, whereas Manon has a little bit of heart in her. Like, don't get me wrong, Manon is terrifying in her own respect, but I feel like she has a little bit of heart, especially for her people and for her wyvern and the people that she really cares about, and I respect that so much more. Also, side note, should we get merch that says eat a bag of dicks, Grandma?
Yes, actually,
should
I
that
feel
be
like
our
that's a really
first
good
merch opportunity?
That would be really good.
And it's like ick yick. If you know, you know type shirt. You know?
Yeah. Did you say ick yuck?
Yeah. If you know, you know.
I've never heard that. I love that. Ick yuck.
Okay. I know that people do say that, but I really got that from, shout out to another one of our my favorite podcasts, Morbid, Ashkel. You know who you are. Ick yick. I got that from you. I have been influenced, let me tell you. Ashkel.
No, I love it.
Love her.
I get it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like saying lol.
Lol, ick yick. You know.
Ick yick.
If you know, you know.
Word. You know that one? What are you doing?
What are you doing?
Word.
What
are you doing? What are you doing? Word. I don't think you get what I'm saying, but it's okay.
Do
you get what I'm saying?
What are you doing? Word. Wired.
Anyways.
Wired. Anyway, eat a bag of dicks. Grandma's sweatshirt's coming soon. I would wear it, not even kidding.
I would wear it as well, honestly.
That'll be our first one, and just ick yick.
Okay. Before jumping back to the fortress with Celaena and Rowan, I do have some things to address with you, Mackenzie. So I know that Rowan has already had a mate, but SJM has been dropping words that I've seen in ACOTAR that's giving me mate bond vibes. And I'm seeing words from both Rowan and Celaena, their POVs. They're saying stuff like territorial, lifeline, possessive need. And they are definitely having mind conversations. I don't think it's just reading his facial expressions. Something is definitely going on. They might not be mates, but I'm definitely picking up on some type of deep bond developing.
Yeah, you can call me out all you want. I do think there is only one mate from all the things that I've read. You can only have one mate. However, we will get more into that in the end of this book, where there could be another type of bond or something of some sort that could be linking them.
Yeah, well, I'm keeping my eyes out on that.
Or maybe it's because they're cousins. Have you ever thought about that?
Yeah, that's true. I do feel like that with my cousins.
Possessive need.
I'm just kidding, guys. I don't even talk to my cousins.
I do feel that possessive need with my cousins.
So yeah, moving on from that. So there is this big spring festival about to be going on, and Rowan has allowed Celaena to attend by working an event. He feels that this is the perfect training ground for her to practice her control over 3 bonfires of different sizes as the festival goers jump over for good luck. I'm sure nothing bad could happen, but we'll see, I guess. He has her going for a few hours before she's like, when can I stop? I'm literally dripping in sweat and I'm so hungry. And he's like, just go on a little bit longer. So she's like, okay, I can do this a little bit longer. Let me just vibe with this music going on. She's vibing. She's watching her flames. She's looking how beautiful their colors and their movements are to the music. And Rowan notices her getting more and more entranced. And he tries to refocus her, but she can't hear him. She's gone, completely entranced by her power and the music, and Rowan can see it. She's trapped in her magic, and in her POV, she's starting to feel like her body is on fire from the inside out. With Rowan's help, Celaena breaks from her magic but collapses to the ground, her body so hot that she singed the grass. The pain was so unbearable and still building, she felt herself dying and she was ready for it. Rowan quickly grabbed some healers who said that she needed to be submerged in ice water ASAP. And with her body still burning, Rowan picks her up and runs to the fort and places her in a bath full of ice. Within seconds, the ice melted and she started to boil again. And it was a terrible cycle of this from switching from boiling to ice water as they tried to cool her off. They eventually had to strip off all her clothes to get her as immersed in the water as possible. This whole time, Rowan was with her, helping refreeze the water that she'd keep melting and reminding her to breathe and stay awake. And I just want to emphasize that this was just such an intense scene from reading this. And I don't know how she didn't actually die, because from the description, she was literally on fire from the inside out, like boiling hot from the inside out. I don't know how she didn't die.
No, seriously. When I was reading this, first I was confused because I was like, fire is it's her power.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So I'm like,
right.
Why is she burning? She's burning from the inside. And I'm excited to get into like why that happens. But that's got to be a terrible, horrifying feeling.
Yeah, that's something that I was kind of stuck on too, because I was like, does everybody react like this? So after she finally cools down and promises not to reset herself on fire, Rowan steps out. And when he comes back, there's 2 things. One, he left so he could get bandaged, because when he was carrying her back here to the bathroom, she was so hot that she burned him along his arms and his chest. And when he comes back into the bathroom, her back is turned to him in the bathtub, and he sees the scars on her back. And then he says the infamous, "Who did that to you?" So now I'm basically Team Rowan.
Yeah, the scene also
It's confirmed.
Really gave me a little flip here too. And in my head, I didn't hear a "who did that to you." I heard a "who did this to you?" Like a shocked, heartbroken, "who did this to you?" But maybe that's just me being like an emotional empath and like what I want them to feel type thing, you know? I feel like when I'm reading these scenes, this is actually one of my favorite tropes. Like a "who did this to you?" Like a sense of like a vulnerability, see the scars, see the whatever. And then you're like, I'm in love with them.
Yeah, no, that's how I thought. I was like, oh, he carried her, even though she was quite literally on fire. He got like 3rd-degree burns, and now he's concerned about these scars on his back. I was like, so he does care. The reason why I was like, who did that to you, is because that's just how I've envisioned Rowan this whole time, is just like stoic and serious, and I don't really see a lot of his heart per se. So that's why I was like,
who did this to you?
Who did this to you?
No, I don't think you're wrong in seeing that. I do think that maybe when I was reading it in his POV, he is like horrified seeing that. I think this scene really, as much as they have been building a friendship, relationship, you know, teamwork ethic type thing, I feel like this scene really humanizes Aelin to Rowan. It really makes him see, oh, she's a person and she's gone through shit. She's not some spoiled little princess who's been running around hiding from her kingdom. Like, she has suffered in ways that you don't understand, that you don't know. So shut your mouth.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Celaena, she's too tired to even go into all of it and like to argue with him about what happened to her. So she just goes ahead and she tells him everything about her time in Endovir. And apparently this is news to Rowan, and he is not happy about it. He feels like his queen, aka Maeve, has lied to him or lied via omission by not telling him what Celaena has actually gone through. Because again, she has the gift of sight, so she should have been able to kind of pick up of what she's gone through and relayed that to Rowan. So that's another mark against Maeve. And then Rowan is just, like you said, horrified to remember all these shitty things that he's been saying to Celaena since she first arrived, to which I say, good.
No, he should be able to feel a little bit of that. He should realize that you can't judge a person based on your small, limited, narrow information of them. But that also does call into question, what has he been told about her this whole time? And what has been said about her this whole time? And I will say, I don't think it doesn't even really go into that in the book, as far as like, was Maeve talking about this spoiled little princess that's running through the kingdom and running from her kingdom and stuff like that. But I do think it calls into question, like, he seemed to really have preconceived notions of her before he ever met her, and whether those are his own assumptions or assumptions that have been relayed to him. It never really talks about that in the book, but I do have suspicions that he obviously knew of Aelin, and like he knew who she was when he first scented her. Like he knew what she was and who she was. So to know that and to know of her, he has to know something about her.
And I feel like that's also just like his only redeeming reason for why he was so mean to her in the beginning. Like, I understand the pain that could cause some like weird personality changes, but I feel like if he had preconceived notions about Aelin too, that would really put the icing on the cake for why he was acting so harsh to her.
Yeah, and asking so harsh for this quote unquote spoiled girl that he's only heard negative things about, and then she comes in with an attitude of like, okay, Mr. Trainer, like, fuck you type thing. Like, I think that could bring out a little bit of annoyance in me as well, but I still think his actions are way over the top and way over dramatized for no reason.
So after he hears all of this, he steps out again for some air, and he thinks about these new revelations about Maeve and Celaena. And after flying for a little while, he returns to the fort, flying into Celena's cold prison room cell where she's sleeping in her little cot. He picks her up and brings her to his room, puts her in his bed, and says that she's to be with him from here on out. That's definitely not giving mates, am I right?
It's definitely giving something. I definitely think it's giving very strong bond. You're obsessed with mates, and I get that. I love a mate theory. I do think that as far as like any SJM book, mates are one and done type thing. You know what I mean? Like, you can't just be having, your mate died, got another one, here they come. There's like an endless supply of mates.
Listen, I get fixations, and this is my fixation. It's either love and babies or mates. So that night, Celaena tells him everything. She tells him about Rifthold, her training, Sam, the day she snapped in Endovier, how she was released from Endovier, and then the next few days, Rowan tends to her like her personal nurse, making sure she eats, rests, and not letting her lift a single finger. She asks why is he being like this with her, and why he's trying to make sure she's with him this whole time. And he tells her it's if other Fays smell that she's injured, it could cause them to be on edge or attack for some instinctual reason. And then they have another intimate moment. When they're in bed together one night, they're talking about how one's magic may run out and what you do in that situation. And that being has two options: to stop or to keep going and risk burning out like she did. That is, unless that being has a Caranam. A Caranam is a pair that can give their power to each other if they're compatible and actively share a blood connection. It's something extremely rare, and most Fae never find their person who they're compatible with, who they trust enough, and who's also skilled enough to share that bond. Which means that's what Celaena and Rowan's connection is going to be, isn't it?
Who could say? Who could know?
I say, I'll call it ding, 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 ding. If it's not mates,
I will say they do obviously they're developing some kind of really spiritual, emotional connection. And I think for the mates option to be off the table, this could be a theory. When I was reading it, I was like, Caranam. That's what they are. They're Caranam. This is it. Done deal. Signed, sealed, delivered.
Yeah, well, I know. I feel like they are 100%. There's no reason to be given all this other intimate bond vibes if they're not the Caranam.
In the book, he also goes into like details about how some other fays have discovered that they have this Caranam bond with another fae, and they've exploited it and misused it, and will do things like keeping them in bondage and trapped to be able to use and siphon their power. And they also said that it involves this like incredible trust, because like, let's say you're burning through all your power, your Caranam gives you this blood, and then you are able to use this power. You can still only use the amount of power that they have, so you can still burn both of you out. And that's why it requires so much trust, because in giving this other person your power, you're giving them the potential ability to burn you out and kill you both.
And yeah, that was going to be my next point. That was a legal thing that was very prevalent in the Feylands as well before Maeve actually outlawed it. And whenever she did outlaw it, he had to go put them down, the ones who were being used or exploited, because they were just so used and broken that they were basically unrehabitable. So that kind of sparks Celaena's little monologue on how no matter what she decides to do with her birthright, she promises that she wants to return to the slave camp she came from and free them all. And like Rowan's tattoos, the scars on her back are a reminder of that promise. Another secret that she hasn't shared with anyone. Rowan and Celaena are holding hands, and he tells her that he believes that she'll be able to free the slaves no matter what her name is that she bears, which really resonates with her so deeply. She leans into his touch, and he strokes her hair, and cue the blooming relationship.
Cue the enemies becoming lovers. This is my favorite part of the book, where like little bits of tension are building, and you're like, do you love me? Are we in love?
I never thought that after a punch in the face.
Nothing like a little violence in the beginning to get the blood pumping, although we do not condone that.
It's giving when parents would be like, if a boy hits you, it's because he likes you.
Basically,
that's what it's giving.
Her parents died so early, she didn't even get to learn that lesson. So she's just learning it now, really.
Yeah, and also in her defense, most people do try to hit her or kill her. So she's probably like, oh,
I think
no
violence
big deal.
is low-key her love language, and it seems like it's kind of Rowan's too. They're both so angry. And for what?
Who can ever know? So throughout her recovery, she has another birthday. So she's 19 now. And Rowan had to go investigate another dead demi-fae. And when they resumed their training, they start working on her wielding weapons from her flames. Things like shields, daggers, swords. And Rowan tells her that she wasn't at the end of her magic well when she had that meltdown. She just let the allure of her magic take over, which is kind of a bummer to Celaena, because she was really hoping that that meant that her magic wasn't as great as everybody thinks it is. And despite that, we see that she is growing back into herself. She's waking up before kitchen duties to train on her own, and she's getting skilled and strong enough to even stand against Rowan now. Yay, love that for her. All is going well until a couple of days later when another body is found, but this one is different. It looks like this demi-fae fought whatever it was that was sucking the life out of him, and upon closer inspection, the demi-fae had black residue under his nails that smelled just like the creature Celaena and Dorian had run away from in the glass castle. So they wonder, was the thing killing demi-faes related to the king's creation? Is he targeting demi-fae for their magical blood, and because the people here don't really care if they go missing, so no one would really look into it? It seems plausible for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's kind of giving like when serial killers target prostitutes or people living on the street because they know they won't go missing. But it seems like, why are they targeting? Because in Rifthold, we're not hearing like, oh, all these people are going missing and stuff like that. They're specifically targeting these demi-fae, I think, for a reason. And we'll get more into that too, but could it be because of their magical powers? Could it be because they do have some kind of magical ability that they are able to exploit in some way? It feels like they're targeting these demi-fae outside the gates of Dornell, the ones that don't have enough power to be invited in, or to beat all these tests, to have all these training that they're deemed worthy, but they still have magical abilities. And so they're able to live in Wendelin under the kind of demi-fae protection. So it's really kind of sad when you think about it. Like most of them don't have the ability to protect themselves. They're not trained in fighting. Most of them have smaller powers, like powers of water, powers to help plants grow, powers to, to do very small, minute things, but powers nonetheless, but not those magical fighting, all those things. So they're not trained in combat.
I think it's a really good representation of just minorities in general. It's like they are just as equal as everybody else. They're just slightly different in some way, shape, or form. And it's very clear that high fays have a place to be and safe because they are high fays. They have that prestige. And same as the mortals who have their safety because they're with other mortals that can protect them, or they're with other rich mortals that can protect them. But the demi-fae are just stuck. They can't really progress one way or another. They're just stuck right there with no other resources other than just like the rare few of them.
They're not fae enough to be part of the fae community, but they're not human enough to be part human, like part of the human community. That's so sad.
It is. But in an evil person's defense, they definitely are a great target.
You said I'm a villain.
Just not
me justifying the villains.
I'm trying to be an empath and understand where they're coming from.
Villains.
And I think that the villains, yeah, because they're people too.
The villains are people
right?
too, or are they?
You just gotta put your feet in their shoes, and then maybe you'll understand the reason.
You got me there.
Maybe not. Cut that out. No, I'm just kidding. Since the demi-fae looked like he fought and drew some blood, they wanted to try to track down whatever it was that killed him. So they track a trail of its blood to some cliffs where they see the perfect spot for an enemy fleet to sneak in and hide inside of a hidden cave. They hypothesized that the Skinwalker 2.0 drops the bodies in the creek instead of the ocean to decrease the chances of the bodies floating to the shore for other people to find and start searching for answers. So they make a plan to return that night to go inside the cave where they suspect more creatures could be hiding. And when the time comes, Rowan switches into his little hawk form, disguising as just an ordinary birdie looking for some shelter from the rain. He goes inside the cave, and when Rowan comes back out, he guides Celaena to meet him deeper back into the woods. Clearly disturbed, he says it's General Narok and his army. Apparently Narok looked like a creature wearing the skin of a man, and he saw the soul-sucking creatures and described them as looking like men, but clearly were not human. And whatever dwelled beneath their skin isn't right. It was like his magic, his very essence, was being repulsed by it. Kind of like what Manon and Abraxos noted with the men in Farron's Gap.
Yeah, good little side tangent there. I feel like that is horrifying, though, to make that connection, because how far spread out are these men, not men, with these collars, these rings? Like, how far spread that so many people over all these stories that we're learning about are seeing these men that are not men, these scents that are not right. It's giving army.
Yeah, it's making me raise my eyebrows. I've already raised my eyebrows once or twice, and now they're really, really high up on my head, and I don't know how much higher they can go. So Rowan suspects that they're actually capturing these demi-fae and experimenting on how to shift them into these soul-sucking creatures. And because no one really cares about this race, they're the perfect candidate to experiment on, like which magical creatures could be converted into the new beast. They try to think of a way to go warn everybody about what's coming, but Rowan catches scent of another one of those soul-sucking creatures close by, aka the Skinwalkers 2.0. And Rowan has her split up to divert their scents and tells her to wait for a signal to attack. It's a terrible rainstorm, so Celaena is trying her best to listen for the monster's movement while she's hiding behind a tree. Its movement stops, and she's starting to worry about Rowan. Did it just leave to go attack him? She lifts her dagger that he'd given her and, quote, the blade was so clean she could see her face in it. She could see the trees and the skies and the creature now standing right behind her. And when I was reading that part, I quite literally got a jump scare, love. I was very spooked. I said I would be screaming, I would be crying, I would be dropping on the ground and probably dying.
That is the biggest ick I've ever heard. That scene, ew. Absolute ew. Can you imagine looking at a blade or like your blade and seeing a monster behind you? That's what nightmares are made of.
Yeah, it is. That's why I got a jump scare. It felt like I was watching a scary movie, even though I was reading it happen.
No, ew.
Very scary. So Celaena jumps around. She's prepared to do a very specific fight combination that she could do in her sleep. But when she meets the creature's eyes, she gets stuck in a frozen state. And he's holding Celaena's face, staring at her real creepy like, and says, "Your agony was like the best wine I had ever tasted." Celaena, still frozen, can feel herself getting sucked back into this nightmare that it brought her into when she was in the burrows. She's feeling herself sink away when Rowan jumps through this nightmare and pulls her out. And he was described as a flash of silver and steel piercing through the inky veil, and a monster with fangs, rage, and wind. They get out, and Rowan is trying to carry Celaena away to safety because he knows he can't win this fight right now, being in the dark and with limited weapons. The Skinwalker 2.0 chases after them and calls out that it's pointless for them to run because he's going to be able to find them. And that was enough for Celaena to say fuck it. So she stops, she turns around, and she lights this huge wall of fire to hold him back as they sprint up this hill to get away. But unfortunately, they run right into the OG Skinwalkers, who, as we remember, are equally as terrifying like the Skinwalker 2.0, and they like to skin people alive. So in contrast to Skinwalker 2.0, they're very gross, very scary, and they smell like the worst shit you've ever smelled. So that's just a side note about them. Rowan and Celaena devised this plan. They said, we're going to lead these people into different directions so hopefully they can run into each other. Celaena gets the Skinwalkers to start chasing her down this path. She's running, and she goes around this sharp corner, secretly dipping out of the path while they're still running behind her. Rowan was waiting at the spot. He grabs Celaena from her sprint, pulling her into a dead stop behind some bushes. And this is where I know that things are going to be getting spicy with them at some point. Because as Rowan was holding her, he was just so tight and protective. And she could smell his scent in her small little body. And honestly, I've got to be honest, I have to say that I would feel very safe if I was too being held in a very scary Fae Warrior's arm.
I think that that's honestly my dream, to be totally honest with you.
And you'd be like,
thank you. I'm so scared. Thank you so much for rescuing me.
So the Skinwalkers continue following the path that they think Celaena is on, and they quickly run into Skinwalker 2.0 coming in from the opposite direction. Together, Celaena and Rowan are hiding out in the trees, and they hear this battle going on between them, and that's 5 Skinwalkers against this one Skinwalker 2.0. They hear them fight all night, and from the sounds of it, they believe that the Skinwalkers actually killed Skinwalker 2.0. And when the morning comes around, they run back to the fort to warn everyone of what they saw coming. They send word to Wendelin, the mortal realm, for support, and they ask the Demi-Fae who are able to stay and fight. Because a long story short, they don't have an army strong enough to take down Narok's army, and Rowan doesn't think that Maeve is going to send any aid to the Demi-Faes. So at this point, when talking about that, they're both admitting that Maeve is a bitch, and I have a feeling that means that Celaena is going to kill Maeve to get Rowan out of his blood oath that he made, because there's pretty much no way that he can get out of the blood oath, right?
I think they were talking about it in the book, and they were like, no one has ever gotten out of a blood oath. Like in history that is documented ever.
And I feel like this was a really big moment for Rowan to like admit, like, yeah, Maeve won't help. Like she doesn't care about these people. So I'm like, that stinks that you're stuck with a blood oath with her.
That's really sad too, because as much as these people aren't in actually Dornell, they're still kind of her people. She just seems like she just doesn't care about them because they're lesser.
So they go to sleep, and Celaena is trying to mentally prepare for this upcoming battle when another bomb is dropped the next day. We know that once word of Princess Nehemiah's death reached the slave camps, the slaves had begun resisting the king more. Word had just arrived to them this morning that the king recently ordered his legions to kill them. All of them. Thousands of slaves murdered overnight. And when I was reading this part, I was just like, Jesus Christ, this girl cannot catch a break. Her literal one goal was to free these slaves, and now they're all dead. Literally, all of them are dead overnight.
That has got to be the most devastating blow for her, to know that like her biggest goal was to free Yulway and then also to free the slaves. And they're dead. Every single one of them is dead.
Yeah. So I feel like this is... I mean, as tragic as it is, I also feel like this is another big character development for her. I feel like this is just like, that was the one thing that was making her get to this point right now. So now it's like they're all gone. What is she going to fight for? Is she going to keep fighting? Is she going to stop fighting? What is her new goal now? So.
Yeah, I feel like for her mental state, it really could go either way. Like, poor girl.
Obviously, this rocks Celaena's world. She's in shock and disbelief and full of anger. So she runs out of the fort and she faces the ward separating her from Maeve's realm and her realm right now. And she unleashes everything in her power against it. And meanwhile, this same news that she just got is also reaching the glass castle, and the boys are shook. The king casually brings up the news over a meal, and Chaol is doing everything not to look surprised or pass out. And it takes every ounce of strength for Aiden to pretend to be happy, as the king informs him that when he killed everyone at Endovier, it also helped with all the rebels in Old Terrason. The king is a fucking psycho.
He really is. And though sure, Aiden is fighting for them, you know that's got to be, even if Aiden felt nothing for his old people, that's still got to be like such a slap in the face to hear him talking about them with such disdain and such laissez-faire, like whatever. It's going to help with the rebels.
It feels like the king was baiting them.
Maybe he was. I mean, he's not an idiot. He's not stupid.
I feel like he was baiting them to see if they were going to do any type of reaction or like show any true colors. But I'm glad that they all held their composure for this moment. But I feel like I would have, like Chaol's POV, he was like, I might pass out. Like that would have been me too. I would have been like, what? And you're okay with this? You're so nonchalantly just eating your breakfast right now and then talking about how you just killed everybody overnight.
I mean, Chaol does need to hear things like this, though, for him to actually, hopefully one day, choose the winning, or not even the winning side, the right side. He needs to hear things like this, how cruel, like how casually cruel the king is.
Yeah.
And how it means nothing to him.
So Dorian runs to Sorscha and he's like, you have got to leave. My dad's a psycho and he's going to kill you if he ever finds out that I have magic and you've been helping me. And she's like, yeah, right. I'm not leaving you, lover boy. And despite the news reaching the whole city, there is still a packed house at the Royal Theater full of rich and pompous people who could care less about what's happening in the world. But thankfully, not everyone is oblivious to this atrocity. The orchestra makes a bold move and they play the fallen slaves' country anthems out of respect. And we know what happens to the people who make bold moves around the king. The book doesn't explicitly say it, but it does say after that night, none of the members of the orchestra were seen again.
Oh, that is such a big part in the book, like a monumental movement in the book too. Just showing that everyone who stands up against the king is gone, disappears. They're never seen again.
Mm-hmm. It's sad and scary to see like how much a corrupt system can take over if they have a good support base, because I feel like the rich and pompous people obviously are supporting the king because they're benefiting from this, whatever it is. And the poor people or the regular people who can think regularly are just more at a disadvantage to do anything about it because they don't have any actual power to do anything. But that is what like I feel like the majority of people are like, yeah, this is kind of not cool.
100%.
But I need to know from everybody if you guys are getting invested in the story yet, because for me, this book has definitely been picking up. And next week, we're going to be finishing this book. So it's going to get even crazier. We post show-related content on our Instagram at Plot Peak Podcast. And we post memes about books that we read on our TikTok at plot.peak.
Yeah, and we also want to remind you guys that we are starting the mini episodes, micro peaks, if you will. And we would like to try to convince everyone else to please write in for some stories. We need some story time. We need some content, if you will. You can write in your bookish battle stories at plotpeakgirlies@gmail.com. Give us anything. Give us tea that's happening in your life. Give us tea that's happening in someone else's life. Give us a crazy story. Give us a drama time. Give us whatever you want. We'll take it at this point. We'll take whatever. You have such a good chance of being read on air, honestly.
You really do. Don't miss out on this opportunity.
Don't miss out on this once in a lifetime opportunity. Please.
That we will continue to ask.
We will harass you until you do. All three of you.
All right, Picas, that is the end of this week's plot. Next week, come back as we take a peek at Sarah J. Maas's Heir of Fire, chapters 50 to 68, aka the end.
Hey, and please be sure to follow us, like we said, on TikTok at plot.peak and Instagram at plotpeakpodcast for a chance to see all the upcoming events, memes, all the things we like to release. There's a lot. You're missing out on a lot if you're not following us.
That's so true. Thanks for listening.
Bye.